shocking images of a famine in South Sudan. In the vast Bahr El Ghazal province, 2 million people are said to be at risk of dying. It's been painted as a classic African story of drought, crop failure, and the cost of civil war. But is this the true story? The world response has been to launch a massive airlift of aid, most through the United Nations Operation Lifeline Sudan. As concern over the famine has spread, Sudan's government has been praised for opening up closed areas of the war-ravaged country to aid. But does it really deserve this praise? Many areas still remain off-limits. The government claims they are too insecure for aid drops. This film takes you on a journey into one of those no-go areas. Here, it uncovers horrific evidence of the real policy Sudan's government has been pursuing in secret under the smokescreen of opening up the nation to aid. It reveals how vast tracts of the country have been turned into a scorched wasteland, where thousands have been killed and millions forced to flee their homes. And it reveals the hidden agenda behind this state-sponsored genocide. Jay, our bush pilot, is flying into One Rock, Bahr El Ghazal. We've been advised it's not safe to fly here, but tiny inter-church aid group Christian Solidarity Worldwide specialises in going to such closed areas to help those most in need.
We were advised that this is not a safe area to visit. That's why UN is not visiting there. That suggests to us that the people are suffering in a big way. It suggests to us that probably aid isn't reaching those most in need, and it suggests that they're very vulnerable to government attacks from the either government forces or the Halim-backed militia, and therefore it's a danger zone.
Despite the dangers, Jay thinks it's important he flies us to One Rock. He's heard rumours of the devastation that swept this region.
In some of the areas, especially the Bahr El Ghazal, the government troops have been on horseback lately, and they've been burning villages and killing women and children mainly, the people who aren't fast enough to get out of their way, stealing livestock and grain.
When we land at One Rock, the fires from recent raids are still burning, and they're still fighting nearby. They quickly unload the aid. It's some of the first to reach this area since the so-called famine began. CSW are bringing in a consignment of precious medicines. There has only been one United Nations aid drop here last April. The people have nothing. Yet this is no parched and fertile part of arid Africa. The Lol River runs through One Rock, one of many rivers in the region. There are vast swamps and wetlands here. The traditional Dinka inhabitants have survived for thousands of years, growing crops of sorghum, which they pound into flour. They keep large herds of cattle, which graze on rich pastures. These are an emergency food, which the Dinka keep in case of adversity. But these scenes are deceptively peaceful. There are now hundreds of corpses rotting in the River Lol. Yet these are not the victims of famine, but of a secret, state-sponsored genocide.
Come rain, come sunshine, come El Nino or without El Nino, we have always had pastures here because of the large swamps. The huge swamps of this region ensure that there is always pasture. If we are going to put our finger on anything, it is the war, it is the tribal raids, it is the carnage, the terror by the government of Sudan on the community. That is the cause of the famine here. They are interested in these pastures, in these lands, and not the people.
In 1989, the National Islamic Front seized power in Sudan in a military coup, toppling the democratic government. An Islamic fundamentalist regime, it seeks to turn this once multi-religious, democratic country into an Islamic state ruled by Islamic law. It's a policy opposed by the majority of Sudanese society, including Christians and moderate Muslims alike. We're taken by the rebel Sudan People's Liberation Army to witness the devastation around One Rock. The SPLA are fighting against a regime they claim is now waging a jihad, or Islamic holy war, against the black, largely Christian peoples of South Sudan. The recent massive destruction across this region is proof, they say, that this jihad is tantamount to genocide. Just days ago, Sudan government-led forces launched a dawn raid on Abi Ndao. A united force of over 1,000 Sudanese military, Mujahideen Islamic warriors and Arab tribesmen set the whole market ablaze. Abi Ndao was once an important regional centre. Traders came from as far away as Sudan's capital Khartoum in the north to buy cattle. Others came up from Uganda in the south. Arabs traded with Dinkas peacefully side by side. Now all that has been lost. The raiders surrounded the busy marketplace on 3 sides, driving the people into a trap, an ambush at the far end. It was a well-planned massacre. Civilian traders, men, women and children, ran into a wall of bullets. By the time the SPLA reached Abi Ndao, the killing was done. They buried the bodies in mass graves all around the town. Commander Selva describes what his soldiers found when they arrived at the scene of the massacre.
We just start to advance from Morok to Abi Ndao here. We got already, everybody was on the ground dead. All the area was burnt, and we saw no one alive. The number of people here, mostly are traders, almost 161. We buried them. Are all civilians, including ladies, girls, because they were caught by surprise.
He was once a captain in the Sudanese government army, but he came over to join the rebel Sudan People's Liberation Army when he saw what was being done to his people. Commander Selva says that this government-backed raid was led by a Sudanese army captain called Osam.
And I saw what they were wearing. I was in the Sudanese army, so I know the dresses of different types of units in the Sudan. So we know that those who are wearing the real khaki that the Sudanese army wear, the uniform that the Sudanese army wear, the same uniform they were wearing.
The 1,000-strong force were a highly mobile raiding party, many mounted on horseback. Nearby the deserted market, a carcass of a horse of one of the raiders. The SPLA pursued the raiders to try to stop further massacres, but the roads here are all but non-existent. The highly mobile raiders fled northeast towards Manabun, deliberately targeting civilians en route. We follow the path the raiding party took as they swept east across Tweak County, spreading terror in their wake, driving through mile after mile of this blasted land, through countless now deserted villages, burnt by the raiders. We're taken to Apioth. It was once a thriving village of over 100 houses, but every hut was burned by the raiders, flaming torches being tossed onto the tinder-dry, thatch and wooden roofs. All that now remain are the charred, blackened clay walls of the huts. This building was once the village grain store, but it too was set alight, the whole village harvest being destroyed in the process. When famine does come to this village, it will be a direct result of this raid.
We just ran, and then we saw the smoke rising from the village in the morning, and we fled away. I don't know why they do this. We are simple, uneducated people. We're not soldiers. I'm just a villager with my family, but they come with their guns.
This woman's family were lucky. They fled into the bush and hid from the raiders, but many did not escape so lightly. There are rules to the terror that's being spread here. The Arab tribesmen and Mujahideen who join the government troops are told they can keep the booty of war, so they came seeking plunder. As they swept northeast, they seized over 10,000 head of cattle. The cattle that refused to be rounded up and driven away as loot were killed, many decapitated by the raiders' weapons. It's a deliberate policy to deprive the Dinka of any source of food. The Dinka cattle herders fled for their lives, but were no match for the mounted horsemen. Many were cut down in the bush as they ran. Hundreds of corpses lay scattered across this land, slaughtered alongside their cattle. Here the stench of death was everywhere. No one has come to bury these bodies. Their relatives have fled to the only place of safe refuge. We walk 20 miles distant to find them, to the vast swamps of Leth and Arath. The ground is treacherous and boggy. No vehicles can travel here, and no horseman could follow those fleeing from the terror. Over 40,000 people are thought to be hiding in these swamplands. They've made crude shelters on the mounds of earth that rise barely above the waters. Traumatised, many injured, they have found desperate refuge in these malaria-ridden swamps. They drink the swamp water. All they have to eat are the roots of water lilies.
Since the 3rd of this month, this is what they have been living on, and nothing else. I myself have been living on it this time.
But this is where the only certain safety now lies. Most are too scared to return to their villages. Few doubt the destruction they would find there.
We ran because of the shooting, but some of us lost our children, the old people, as we ran. Our goats and cows were taken, and we ran for our lives, here to the swamps.
With the rainy season fast approaching, tens of thousands of people are now not able to plant their crops. They're in desperate need of aid.
Of all the times I've visited Sudan, I've never seen such massive, man-made, systematic horror and suffering. There is famine, but that famine is entirely man-made. That famine has been created by a government that has sent hordes of militia, its own government forces, pounding into these villages, massacring, burning homes, burning crops, killing people in cold blood, killing livestock, driving innocent civilians out to live in the swamps and under the trees in the bush. Their famine is made by the government, and they will die unless help comes to them.
Many of the raiders believe they are on a jihad, that they kill unbelievers in the name of Islam. It is impossible to communicate the terror they are spreading here. We're taken to one small village which was completely wiped out. In the ruins of a hut were shown the remains of people who were burned alive. One of the huts escaped being torched, but there's no one left alive to play these drums or catch fish in these traps now. Outside the hut was shown the grave where the SPLA buried the bodies. One SPLA soldier shows us how the raiders trussed up their victims before killing them.
They just caught the people and they tied their hands with a rope and their legs with a rope. They tied their hand behind and then they lie them down and they're slaughtering with a knife like a goat. This is how they're slaughtering. But the men who are very strong, that they can resist, they tie them and then they throw them into the head which was burned.
These killings are supposedly on behalf of Islam, but contradict many teachings in the Quran and the spirit of moderate Islam. The Quran clearly states that there should be no compulsion in religion, no forced conversion by the sword, and that all prophets should be respected, making special mention of the Gospel of Jesus. The Catholic Church at Mayanabun, which once served a 300-strong Christian congregation, was a main target of these raids. But unlike the thatched, mud hut villages, it could not be burned down, and the raiders had no heavy weapons to destroy its thick walls.
I think that before, this wasn't a religious war, but now there is a jihad against the Christians. It is a religious war now. We are living on the very borders of Islam. So, what can we do? Leave this place? Our grandfathers lived and died in this area. We don't want to leave this land. There should be love in the world between Islam and Christianity, but the world needs to make peace in the Sudan, and we are waiting for a very long time. And we are preparing for peace, praying for peace, but no peace comes.
Later, back at One Rock, at a meeting with village elders, there is no doubt who has orchestrated this campaign of terror.
Omar Bashir, the president of Sudan, he is the one organising his people to come and kill. The killers are under his command. He sends them to steal and leave us to die with hunger. How can you believe he is our president when you have seen that he does this?
The elders explain the huge extent of these raids. They have covered 4 counties, Awil West, Awil East, Abiy and now Tweak. Hundreds of villages have been destroyed. Thousands of people have been killed. Over 2 million have fled their homes.
We have Wit and Malwal village banned. We have Rumbek village is banned. We have Ayaj village is banned. For the Abiy County in general, we could say 50 villages forming the Abiy County area is completely burned down all. That's what I could say. And if you go now, you will see only the ashes. You will move only on ashes.
The raiders also come seeking human booty, women and children as slaves, who will face forced conversion to Islam.
The Arabs came seeking children as slaves. Around 5,000 have been taken now, and we don't know where they've gone to.
In the midst of this meeting, a young boy is brought to us. He was found in a raided village, abandoned amongst the burned ruins. He cannot speak and has survived a week alone in the bush. His trauma is painfully clear.
He was found in one of the burnt villages. He was abandoned in the grass. Nobody knows who his parents are. Nobody knows where his parents have gone, whether they have been killed in the battle. But some people who were trying to check the village found him, having been alone for a week or more.
We carry him to a local feeding centre. A coalition of tiny aid agencies have just set up here, part of an aid operation called Goal. They are struggling to provide food and medicines with pitifully few resources. A local woman, herself displaced by the raids, agrees to take the little boy and look after him as her own. The dignity of the people here is humbling.
So I'd like to say to the people who watch this, you're not talking about poor African people who can't feed themselves. This is a bloody rich country, and that's why they've been pushed out of it, because it is rich. Because it is rich. If there was nothing here, they wouldn't be coming here for this land. I 11 years in South Africa, and I tell you, I fought against apartheid. I was working against apartheid as a Catholic priest. And apartheid is a tea party in comparison with southern Sudan, and I was there during the worst years of apartheid. It's a tea party in comparison.
There is hunger here, but it's the hunger caused by these raids. All these people have fled their villages and now have no homes to return to. This is the cause of any famine here. It is a deliberate policy of genocide or ethnic cleansing, and one Western aid will do little to stop.
Well, I'm 11 years in Sudan, and I swear to God, this is the worst situation I have seen inside Sudan. And this has been created by the government of Sudan, and now suddenly they send down these Arab, the army, mixed with these Muharralin, to loot, to pillage, and to rape, and to take women and children, driven the people, the poor people, already badly off, into the middle of the swamps, where in 2 weeks' time we cannot reach them. It's all swamp, we cannot reach them. Humanitarian assistance here is not enough. The Sudan People's Liberation Army are trying to defend their people. To the outside world, they might look like rebels, but to the local people, they are their only hope, their only defence against these Arab raiders are their own soldiers. We need political action on the Sudanese conflict to stop the damn war, and to make people, let the people live and fish in the river here and cultivate.
We were told there had been just one airdrop of aid here last April. So far, this area appears to have remained outside the United Nations-mounted Operation Lifeline Sudan. On our final day at One Rock, a UN jeep does arrive. James Abili says he's come here to assess security. We ask him what the UN thinks the cause of the crisis is in Sudan, and how that might explain the UN's apparent absence here.
Drought and the crop failure spreads throughout South Sudan. It's quite difficult to support food drops in an area twice the size of France with one Hercules. But if you ask me where the UN has been here.
As we prepare to leave, the SPLA receive new reports of another column of raiders preparing further attacks from the east. Whilst we may fly away to safety, people here are left behind to face yet more raids.
Aid is not the answer, but they're going desperately to need aid, and particularly while they're displaced by the terror tactics of the government. They're living in the swamps, malaria-infested swamps. They're going to need mosquito nets on a huge scale until they can come back to their own villages. But their villages are devastated. They've got no shelter. So when the rainy season comes, they're going to need aid just to survive in those villages. Their crops have been burnt, so they have no food if they come back. So they're going to need food aid. Yes, medical aid. They've got virtually nothing because everything was taken. So they're going to need medical aid on a huge scale too. So aid is needed, but aid is not the answer. The answer has to be the international community putting a stop to the genocidal policies of the regime in Khartoum.
Local SPLA commanders believe they are holding the front line in a war to stop the global spread of Islamic fundamentalism, but they receive little, if any, help from the free world.
My message is simple, that please turn an eye to these suffering people of Sudan. Your interests should be also connected with humanity. And for sure, I'm seeing that there is no situation which I think it is a worse situation more than the situation which our people are in.
But is there also a hidden motive for the terror we've just witnessed? If there is, it lies beneath these plains, where there's $45 billion worth of oil. With Chinese, Malaysian and North American money, the Sudanese regime are building a pipeline to extract 200,000 barrels of oil a day by 1999. Clearing civilians and the SPLA from this land is vital to their plans. We head for a secret rendezvous with Dr. John Garang, chairman of the Sudan People's Liberation Army. He has few doubts why Sudan's government is pursuing genocide in South Sudan and why he must carry on fighting. At his base, our plane is quickly camouflaged. If he is defeated, claims Garang, Islamic extremists will sweep into Africa and beyond.
It's complete devastation of the area, killing anything that they find inside, taking what they can and destroying what they cannot take. Human beings, animals, the burning of houses, total havoc, total destruction. That way they are able to clear the area around the oil fields so that they are able to, according to them, export oil by 1999 and even prosecute the war much more vigorously. So this is a calculated, cold-blooded genocide that is going on in northern Bahr El Ghazal, while at the same time they are sending positive signals to the international community. So they are getting a pat on the back from the international community while they are actually killing children, destroying the whole countryside. It's just burnt houses and in houses You get dead bodies burnt in the houses. Some are thrown into the houses. And this government claims to be a government of the Sudan. It isn't. It's a government of killers. It should be condemned. Sanctions should be made against this government. It should be isolated. And those who are struggling to defend themselves must be assisted.
The Sudan People's Liberation Army are part of the recently formed National Democratic Alliance. It's a coalition of Sudan's pro-democracy forces based in Eritrea, uniting Christians and Muslims, Arabs and black Africans against the Islamic fundamentalist regime in Khartoum. They seek a democratic future for Sudan, one free from the religious and ethnic hatred that presently grips this land. Whilst recent images of famine may have forced the world to act on the Sudan, no amount of aid alone will halt the genocide now taking place there. The ruling regime is bent on converting Sudan into an Islamic fundamentalist state and exterminating all those who stand in the way of this process. How many civilians must die in Bahr El Ghazal and elsewhere before the world wakes up to this slaughter?